We want to bring in Jason Wheeler and Teresa Woodard, who are in Austin with the latest information. What are you hearing?
Yeah, good morning, Tanya. Good morning, Bud. Just a couple of moments ago through the rotunda, we saw the members of the House Board of Managers. Those, of course, are the members of the House of Representatives who sort of prosecuted this case. They were walking from the House chamber into the Senate chamber. As of right now, there's just a lot of media waiting on an answer, as we have been waiting since yesterday, right around noon, when closing arguments ended and the senators were sent away to begin their deliberations.
Yeah, and just a little while ago here at the Capitol, which is, of course, always open, even as all of these things are going on. In fact, we were running into visitors yesterday from out of state who had no idea, like, what's going on here? Right. It's an impeachment trial. Oh, yeah, we've heard of that. Just maybe 10 minutes ago, this place was still buzzing, still loud, with a lot of people milling about in here. And as happened yesterday with those closing arguments, the place just sort of clears out as we're getting ready for the big moment, which we're getting ready for now. As we hit 10:33, we're taking a look there in the Senate chambers, which is the impeachment court. And you can see people are still just standing around talking in groups right now. This, by the way, is not at all out of character.
Oh, right.
This hasn't run exactly like a traditional court has, and these times get pushed a lot.
Texas politics, not always the most punctual thing to be a part of. They say 10:30, it could be 10:38, it could be 10:45. But let's run you through a little bit of logistics, because this is going to be unlike anything really any of us have witnessed, because it's been a century since it's happened. But here's, according to the rules, which we know can be a little flexible, according to the rules that the Senate adopted long before this trial started, when senators come in, the articles will be read one by one. An article will be read, they will have a written vote. Should it be sustained? Sustained basically means Ken Paxton is guilty. Does it not have to be sustained? Yes, he's not guilty. After they read the article and the senators do a written vote, then the Secretary of the Senate will actually randomly pull those written pieces of paper out and read them one by one and ask the senators, is this how you voted? After that process finishes, then we will hear another round of voting. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick will then poll the senators and say, is this exactly how you voted? Now, that's going to happen 16 times this morning. So we don't know how long this is going to take, but it could take a while.
Yeah, we know that it is going to take a good amount of time. If you were with us on day one, you remember all of these different motions that they ran through. Bud Kennedy was talking about that just a few minutes ago. And basically the defense was saying, we want to throw out all the articles of impeachment. Let's take a vote. Then we want to throw out these two articles and then this single article. And they did that over and over and over again. And it took a long time. I would guess it probably took an hour, maybe more than an hour. It seems like that was a long time ago now, the beginning of last week. But the point here is that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who's the presiding officer over this, essentially the judge in this impeachment trial, said yesterday, these jurors, the senators who are deciding here, essentially they are deciding 16 different cases. This is like 16 trials all in one. And the verdict will probably reflect that in just the length of time it takes to get through that.
And remember this, the articles of impeachment are each different. And so there is a different accusation included in each one of them. We could get through 14 articles of impeachment and nothing has happened. And then at the end, something does happen. So stay with us for the long haul if you're watching this live stream, because just because he is not guilty of the first 10, it doesn't mean that something's not going to happen. He could be not guilty on all of those, clearly, or he could be found, they could sustain one of the early articles of impeachment, and then we know that he will be removed from office for this term.
And that is the point. It only takes one of the 16, and then he would be removed permanently from the office that he holds right now for this current term. Right now, he's suspended as we await this outcome. And then they'll have this period, if they do have a conviction on one or more articles, they'll have this period of 15 minutes for each side to present their case, the prosecution and the defense to present their case as to why he should or should not be barred from ever running for political office statewide again. And then they'll take another vote to see whether the senators would want to bar him from running for statewide office again. But, we talked about this. I think if you look right around the corner here, there is actually a portrait of Ma Ferguson hanging up here. Pa Ferguson,
Pa's not far away.
Back in 1917 was the highest state official in Texas to ever be impeached and convicted. He was a governor. He was removed from office, and they said, yeah, you can't run for any more offices statewide. He still tried. So, I guess there was nothing to stop him from, running a campaign, trying to get on the ballot and so forth. But it does make it a lot harder for you to get into elected office when they say that they don't ever want you in there again.
And what we're just discussing could be a moot point, because it could be that he's not convicted on any of these.
And haven't you gotten the sense, we've been talking to some very smart people here in the Capitol, some very smart people who've been part of this program
Very
as well.
well-connected people, too.
And who have all of these different sources, and nobody seems to know how this is going, Teresa, which is odd in Austin.
Yeah. Well, as Bud said right when we came on the air, this is difficult. To get 2/3 of a body to agree on anything is difficult, but especially on something that's as big of a decision as this. So again, to run through the numbers, there are 31 senators in the state of Texas, but remember, Senator Angela Paxton of Collin County, she's married to Ken Paxton. And so when they adopted these rules, long before the trial started, they said, you must be present, you must listen to everything, but Senator Paxton, you can't vote because you have a conflict of interest. So that removes her from the voting process. However, they did not change the total number of votes required to meet that threshold. So yes, there's 31 senators and there's only 30 voting. It takes 21 senators to convict him of anything. There are 12 Democrats. We don't know for sure, but we assume those 12 Democrats would vote to convict him. And that means 9 Republicans have to join with those Democrats. And this is a difficult vote. This is a big decision for all of them inside that chamber right now. And they were reminded of that during closing arguments yesterday.
were. These senators, they're all thinking of their legacies.
Absolutely.
Whether they're a first-term senator or they've been in here forever and a day, they all think about their legacies. They all think about how they're going to be remembered someday. And the prosecution really laid that out in front of them yesterday and said, this is going to be the most important choice that you make in your career. 100 years from now, this is the only vote that you will have taken that anyone is going to remember. So, a lot of pressure sitting on this.
Although I would say it's been 100 years since it happened to Pa Ferguson, and I don't know the names of the senators who voted on that.
We're not talking about who did that.
Exactly. But it does just remind us of the gravity of the moment. And I think yesterday we certainly felt that when we heard the lieutenant governor giving the senators the instructions when they were sent away to begin their deliberations. He really did remind them of the gravity of what this is. It was also certainly hit home by State Representative Jeff Leach, of course, a Collin County Republican, said he'd been a lifelong friend of Ken Paxton. That's who the House went to give their final word. He's the last voice that the senators have in their head. He talked about the difficult decision that he faced in the House when he decided that he believed Ken Paxton was not fit for office anymore, and so he voted to impeach. He's been a member of the House Board of Managers, so he helped prosecute this case. And yesterday he told senators, I know this is hard. It's the hardest thing I've done. He didn't just say in his political career, he said in his life. And that's the message that he was sending to senators. He understands.
And I'm standing... Oh, wait, I think he said the vote's been delayed till 11:10. Did I just hear that right?
I don't know. I heard...
Okay, 11:10.
Okay, 11:10. All right. So it's 10:41. We thought it was going to happen at 10:30. As we mentioned, they're not always punctual. Didn't we say that?
I might say they're almost always not punctual. So we've got another 30 minutes to wait here. I was just going to make the point that this is the biggest Texas Rangers fan you have ever met right here. And so the analogy is with Jeff Leach, with Representative Leach yesterday, there's a reason that they put him up there for that final at-bat. They
he was
really
the cleanup
did.
guy.
Absolutely. And the thing is that he basically said, we're not here to get Ken Paxton. The defense had made the argument that, this is the House against Ken Paxton. This is Republicans who, have ambitions against Ken Paxton. This is, sort of the deep state in Ken Paxton's office against Ken Paxton. This is Democrats against Ken Paxton. And he got up there and said, no, this is no one trying to get him. I didn't want to have to get him. I campaigned with this man. We went to football games together. We went to we churched together. together.
We traveled together.
We traveled together. He said, I loved Ken Paxton for a long time. And then he started running through how things had changed in the past couple of years. And then all of this came about. So he really tried to bring that case home for the prosecution.
And I've heard a little bit of an argument from some people who said, you know what, this was just a beef inside the office, and that these whistleblowers should have gone to Ken Paxton first and said, you know what, we've got some problems, we don't like this. Or the House of Representatives should have said, you know what, we're going to call you in and we're going to talk this through before we take this public. Well, Jeff Leach yesterday was making the point, we tried. And the whistleblowers have said, we tried. We tried our best to tell him we have concerns. Jeff Leach said yesterday, we invited him to testify 12 times in front of our committee, and he did not come.
Yeah.
And I know that was a point of contention that Jeff Leach had when the argument has been made, well, you should have handled this inside your own house before you took it outside and went public with it.
And the interesting thing is that some of those whistleblowers and some of the others who testified, including the ranger who was there in the office, who was
David
one of the
Maxwell.
whistleblowers, they were in the gallery yesterday as these closing arguments were being laid out, because they were allowed to be. Up until then, they had been under the rule, which meant that they couldn't hear anybody else's testimony or any other discussions going on in court outside of when they were in there. So they were listening in on that. One thing that I'm watching for today, we know, that these senators have been here a long time. They spent a legislative session getting ready for the legislative session before that. And then after that, they've had special sessions. And then this came up that kept them here in Austin. And then they probably still have special sessions to come. And so one of the things that I'm really looking for here is, we know that these senators are fatigued. We know that they would probably like to go home, get back to their full-time jobs, get back to their families, and also get back to campaigning and raising money, because we're heading into an election season here. And so you do wonder, after we get through these 16 articles, let's remember there's 4 more articles that were the set-asides. So there were 20 in all. We're only looking at 16 right now. There were 4 that were set aside. One of those, had to do with Ken Paxton's financial disclosure forms. A couple of those had to do with his securities fraud case against him. And so they've put those aside, and those can be brought up after we get through these first 16. And the interesting thing with those is those can be dismissed on just a simple majority vote. So all it takes is 16 senators to get rid of those. And with the ones dealing with conviction or acquittal, those have that higher threshold of 2/3 majority. And
I think a lot of people may think, oh, today feels like the finish line. This feels like the end. It's certainly not in anyone's life, because we don't know if tomorrow, or actually this afternoon, once the vote is done, if he is not guilty on any of these, Ken Paxton can go straight back to his office.
Which is right next door, by the way. Yeah.
However, hanging over the head is still the indictments from, and this how long has it been? 8 years, 9 years since the indictments on securities and exchange fraud. So that trial is supposed to maybe begin this fall. So while this might feel like a finish line, I don't think it really is. I think it's sort of the middle.
I think we're maybe to the end of the appetizer.
Yeah,
here.
Absolutely.
So Tanya, we just kind of came into your streaming broadcast here and took over. Sorry.
Felt a little bit like a filibuster, but that's okay. I appreciate it.
We are inside the Capitol. What did you expect?
It's all good, but clearly you and Teresa and Jason, y'all really play off of each other really well.